Okay. Welcome, everyone. We're here for our first session of our kind of 5-part series today. So today, roughly, is kind of themed around foundations in the feet. And by that, I mean primarily our focus is with the feet today. So within postures, but also within other parts of the practice, we might kind of take a focus down on the feet. Sometimes that might involve a little bit of kind of self-touch. It's very optional. If that doesn't feel like something that you want to do, please just ignore me at that point, do something else. But we also might explore a little bit of movement with the feet within postures and look slightly at alignment. And when I say alignment, I'm going to kind of suggest what might feel good in your body for you rather than kind of all in the same kind of alignment. So I'll kind of break that down when we get there. But I thought we would start lying down. If you would rather stay seated, staying seated here. But if you're feeling comfortable, then perhaps coming all the way down to your mat. You can always use a blanket as a pillow here. We'll spend a little bit of time kind of grounding and arriving in our practice. So if there's any movement that you want to take here, whether that's a bit of a kind of stretch or a wriggle around, to help yourself find a bit of comfort down on the ground. And it might be that you have your legs stretched out long here, or you could take your knees upwards towards the sky, feet planted on the ground. So taking whatever movement it is you want to take here. And then that invitation is there to draw towards stillness. So we never have to be kind of perfectly still within these practices, but perhaps drawing towards that sense of stillness. And it might be that you take a few kind of deeper breaths in and out here. You could either find a soft focus up on the ceiling, or you could close down the eyes here. So that idea of slowing, maybe pausing, to really give ourselves a bit of time and a space to arrive here. So you might take a few deeper breaths again, any way that feels good here. It might be an inhale through the nose and an exhale through the mouth. But a little bit of kind of moving the air around in the body. Maybe your hands have landed on your body, or perhaps they're away from the body here. I'm going to rest mine onto my belly so I can really kind of feel the breath moving in and out here. And then perhaps starting to find a sense of rhythm within your own breath. So if we're continuing with that inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth here, but rather than taking really big breaths, perhaps we take quite a slow but a steady inhale, and then a slow and steady exhale. So depending what you've been doing today, it might be that your breath feels kind of short and quite up in your chest. Or maybe you've been sitting still for a bit of time and the breath is already quite slow. So you might take a moment here to really kind of check in with your own breath. And we'll be here for around 15 rounds of breath. That slow, steady inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. It might be that you notice the sound of your breath here, or maybe you notice how the body moves with your breath. So it might be those more obvious places like around the chest and the belly, but perhaps noticing how your breath moves around your shoulders as well. Your shoulders lift or kind of spread apart on your inhales. How does the lower back move as well? Or does it move? You could either stay fully focused on those slow, steady inhales and exhales here. If you wanted to, you might also take a moment to really kind of check in with how you're doing. But to do that today, perhaps literally asking ourselves, how am I today? And observing what thoughts or what feelings come up here. We might do that twice more, so that how am I today? How am I today? Perhaps there's one thing that keeps kind of occurring, or a range of different things here. Noticing whatever that is for you, particularly today. And if there's anything you want to set to the side or kind of leave away from your day, then perhaps you take again a slightly deeper inhale and exhale here and kind of breathe whatever that is out to the side. And equally, there's that space here to draw something in as well. So this can often be our intention within our yoga practice or a focus. So the focus of our class today is foundations in the feet. But your intention might be something slightly different here. It might be something that you'd like to feel. Maybe that's today you are hoping to find a bit of movement and see how it feels to be back with your practice, or you're looking for calm. Whatever it is for you personally, your intention, bringing that into mind here. Maybe taking a few breaths with that in mind as well. You're super welcome to keep those slow, steady inhales and exhales going as we move through our practice today. I will kind of cue us there again every now and then. But when you feel ready, we might start to invite gentle movement back into the body here. So wriggles of fingers and wriggles of the toes as well. And then taking that into our rotations through wrists and ankles. So these circles could be quite slow or they could be quite big. And if it's helpful, you can take your feet towards the sky here. So you've got a little bit more kind of access to move the ankles. Maybe welcoming those click sounds that we often hear within practice. And then dropping one foot. So I've taken my left foot down here, back to the mat, and then slid that leg along. So my left leg here is reaching away from you. Right knee draws in towards chest. We might take hold of it here with both hands. So we're giving our right knee a really good squeeze in towards the chest. So if it feels okay to do so, then lifting your left heel up by about an inch, maybe 2 inches here. And then we're going to hold that squeeze of our right knee real tight in towards the chest. Seeing if we can flatten through the lower back as well as we do this. Maybe we're keeping those slow, steady breaths going. Take one more round of breath together. And then at the same time, dropping the left heel down and then releasing the right knee a bit here. So we are giving it a little bit more space. Left hand comes back down alongside you. Right hand is still on your right knee here. And then starting to explore movement into the hips. So taking a circle with the right knee. Doesn't matter which direction you're taking this in. So we're going to take around 5 in one direction. And then once you've done those 5, exploring the opposite direction as well here. So we're starting kind of opening up through the hip or taking a look at your mobility here. And then let's find the edges of that mobility as well. So right hand is on the right knee. See how far it feels comfortable to draw your right knee out to the right side of your body. So you're opening the hip out here. And at some point, you'll find a kind of edge. Maybe there's tissue meeting tissue. Maybe there's bone meeting bone somewhere. So that's like compression on the outside of the hip. Just so you where that space is. And we'll come back to that again later here. And then let's draw our right knee back in towards the center. This time our left hand, so opposite hand takes hold of the knee, and we'll draw it across the body. So we're taking it into our twist here, seeing if we can keep both shoulders flat on the mat here. So that might mean your right knee is quite high in the sky here. So both shoulder blades are down on the mat, back of the head is down on the mat as well. And your left hand could either be supporting, or it could be trying to kind of pull you in slightly deeper into your twist with your lower torso. When we keep the shoulders down here, we're encouraging that twist to be in the torso. And it might feel fairly low. And then again, drawing back through to center. One more thing here with the hip is to find our half happy baby. So taking our hand to the inside of your right foot in the arch, so that little kind of indent in the foot where it raises away from the ground. Right foot as if it was placed on the ceiling. So it's flat towards the ceiling. And then seeing again how it feels to draw that knee in towards the armpit. Maybe you feel this time compression through the top or the front of your hip. And maybe there's a deep breath. And then again, release that right leg long all the way towards your left. Landing the legs one side alongside each other. Maybe your right leg feels a little bit longer. It might feel the same. And we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. So left knee draws into chest, taking hold of it with both hands here. Option is there to take your right heel up about an inch or so. So it's floating off the ground. And then squeezing left knee in towards chest. And again, we'll see if we can hold that squeeze for around 4 of those slow, steady breaths. All this time, keeping the shoulders down on the mat, keeping the head down on the mat as well, and also seeing if we can flatten through the lower back. So there's a lot to think about, even in these poses where it looks like we're not particularly doing much. There's one more round of breath. And then at the same time, dropping the right heel down, we release the left knee a little bit here. Feel free to wriggle if you want to. Left hand stays on the left knee to explore our circles again. So taking 5 in one direction, whichever you go here. Maybe the knee starts to move independently and you don't actually want to use the hand to kind of draw it round, but it's there if you need it. And then once you've done 5 circles, taking the opposite direction as well. It's not unusual to feel those kind of clunks as you go over different muscles and different tendons around the hip here. So if it's feeling super clunky, -2. Eventually coming back through to center, left hand is on the knee, and again, we'll explore where our edge is within here. So left knee draws all the way out to the side, and at some point, you'll kind of find where that edge is. Each of us might be slightly different. Feel free to move it around until you find what that is. Right hip is still down on the mat. So seeing if we can keep the pelvis roughly steady here. And if it's helpful, take your right hand onto the front of your right hip. And then holding that there. It might be different on one side. A lot of people are more open on one side, or equally more closed. And then drawing our left knee through to center, opposite hand. So right hand finds the left knee and then draws it across the body into the twist again. So keeping left shoulder back down on the mat. That might mean your left knee is really lifted here in our twist. So just see where you feel that. For me, today it's through the glutes. It might be more around your hip again, lower back. And then drawing all the way back through to center. One more thing on this side, taking our half happy baby. So left hand to the inside of your left foot. drawing that knee in towards your armpit here. And again, maybe you take a wriggle around that, or maybe it's stillness, noticing where your hip bone is. Maybe you can kind of feel a bit of compression through the front of your torso. Also noticing how the foot feels in this position. Happy baby is one of those kind of contact places where our hands and feet meet. So we'll come back to this later towards the end of our practice. And then releasing left leg long. Once both legs are long here, maybe you have a wriggle through the feet and then drawing both knees back in towards chest. We'll take around 5 breaths here, knees drawn into chest. It could be stillness, or I'm going to explore some movement here. So taking rocks side to side or circles with both knees together here. And whilst you're doing that, focus again might be all around the hips, the lower back, noticing how that kind of feels. Maybe it's a little bit of a kind of massage around the back. And we'll take this all the way up to our seat. So you can either use the hands to draw up or take your hands behind your legs and then kind of use your legs to rock a couple of times lengthways along the spine until eventually you find a seat. And rather than taking cross-legged here, we might find our butterfly. So both feet are towards each other, knees are out wide here. And this is where we might explore a little bit of our self-touch within the feet here. So if this is not something that you want to take here, you could have the hands on the shins and find a fold and explore that instead. If you do want to come with me and kind of wake up the feet a little bit here, then perhaps starting at the toes, taking hold of the toes with your hands and just noticing the temperature that they feel. So your toes are all cold, maybe your hands are a little bit warmer, giving them a squeeze. And then we're going to take those squeezes all the way down the feet here. So it doesn't have to be a particular way. It might be that your thumb and your outside fingers are kind of wrapped around and you squeeze that through the center of your foot all the way down to the heel and then around the back of the heel. I'm going to pick up one foot here. So whichever foot you want to pick up, and then starting to explore a little bit of self-touch into the sole of your foot here. So I'm using my thumbs to kind of palpate between the feet, especially around the arch of your foot. Maybe there's a few bits that feel kind of funky in there. And again, you can explore the heel. If you're enjoying it, stay with it. Otherwise, exploring some movement in our ankle here by taking hold of your shin. I've got one hand to take hold of that. Opposite hand takes hold of your foot and then using your foot to explore that movement. So circles again in the ankle here. Exploring the edges within that. Maybe you draw the toes all the way back to find that flex through the foot and then the opposite way as well. Last thing we'll do here is to find a little bit of a kind of hip of our foot. So flat palm on the right, and then giving that sole of the foot a good kind of flap. You can do the top of your foot here. Maybe it feels a little bit warmer from that. Maybe it doesn't, and we're going to do the same on the other side. So when you're ready, starting by exploring with the thumbs, those squeezes, working your way down from toes towards the heel of your foot. You might do that a couple of times. Maybe looking at the arch of your foot. Maybe wishing you'd washed your feet and I'd warned you. And then taking hold of your shin in any way that's okay. Maybe you explore some movement with the ankles here. Really kind of looking at how all those little kind of joints move within the foot here. Same with your toes. You could take a flex of the toes back towards you and then away from you. And then again, that last thing, flat palm onto the sole of your foot, waking that up. We can do that on the top, the sides, all around. Maybe you give the toes a good wriggle as we settle that back down here. And then let's draw all the way back up to our seat. So if you feel quite comfortable in butterfly, stay there. or crossing the legs here to find your seat. And we'll work into our neck and our arms. So we're not going to neglect the rest of our practice here. Hands land either side of your hips, dropping left ear down towards left shoulder. Maybe there's a breath there. And then taking a really big circle with the nose. So chin draws through, center over towards the right, up to the sky, circles itself round. We might do that twice here. Coming back through to center and then landing with right ear dropping down towards right shoulder, and we'll hold on that side as well. Maybe there's a deep breath when you're there. Chin draws all the way down towards the chest, so tucking the chin under here. Shoulders might draw up towards the ears, and then taking a few rolls through the shoulders any way that feels good. Doesn't have to look a particular way here. Just starting to warm the shoulders up, and we'll take that straight into the arms. So hands reach up overhead, nice and slow to begin with. Palms could touch or be near each other, and then rotating the hands outwards, floating all the way back down. And we'll take that another 5 rounds here. So maybe it's an inhale as we draw up, exhale as we come back down. Take another 4 in your own time. On this next one, we'll stay hands reaching in the sky. So imagining someone is pulling you up by the fingertips, finding length through the sides of the body, all the way down to your hips. Maybe you look up between the fingertips as well. And then let's take that to our fold. Hands start to draw down in front of you. You could either land on the fingertips and pause here, or you could place the palms down and then start to walk the palms forwards as we drop the chest all the way down as well. Chin might tuck under, taking a couple of breaths here. Tuck the chin under. Maybe there's that length through the back of the neck again. And then rising all the way back up. We'll come to our tabletop, so you can either roll over your knees or swivel everything to the side. If you've got a blanket and you want to pad the knees out here, grab yourself that blanket, place it underneath the knees for a bit of support. Otherwise, finding our tabletop, so hands are roughly under shoulders, knees are roughly underneath the hips here. Tiny mini focus on our hands for a moment. We want to take a little look down at the fingers, seeing if we can spread them super wide here. So your thumb and pinky finger are stretching as wide as they possibly can. And then as if you're gripping into the mat here, so your knuckles might bend ever so slightly. You're trying to grab at the ground. Notice how that changes through your hand. Maybe that arch, just like you have an arch in your foot, appears in the hand as well. So we're often looking for active hands here, even though we might not feel like having active hands. Sometimes this helps to protect the wrist. So we'll come back to that in our downward facing dog, that grip, to see how it changes the pose. And then dropping belly down into our cat cows, shoulders are dropped down as well, looking forwards with the chin and the nose, cow pose. And then tucking chin to chest as we start to round the shoulders upwards and tuck tailbone under to find cat. We'll take that another 5 times here. So through your cow pose, belly drop down, looking forwards, and then tucking the chin to chest as we look to the knees and arch through the back. You could keep moving backwards and forwards here if it feels like you want to wriggle the hips, and you can also take a rock backwards and forwards. We'll take another 2 rounds in your own time. Maybe it's an inhale as you look forwards and an exhale as you look back. And then landing in our cow pose. So belly is dropped down again, shoulders are dropped down, tucking both toes under here. And then as if we're going to push to our child's pose, hips sink back towards the heels. So we're finding a stretch through the feet here. pushing your hands into the mat as well. So you're pushing that stretch slightly deeper. You could either stay exactly where you are or starting to walk the hands towards your knees and then towards the thighs. See how that feels through the feet. You can always come back forwards if that starts to get too intense of a stretch through the toes and the sole of your feet. If you're feeling okay, let's interlace the fingers at the heart here and then push the hands up towards the sky, finding that bit of length up. Maybe you look up at the hands again and then dropping our hands out forwards. So the hands or palms of the hands are reaching forwards, rounding through the shoulders. Shoulders are pushing back, palms are pushing forwards. And we'll find that one more time. Inhale to take the hands back towards the sky. Chest is lifted. Exhale to draw the hands forwards, shoulder blades push out behind. In fact, let's do that one more time. Inhale to draw up. Exhale to draw back down, hands pushing forwards, shoulder blades pushing out. And then releasing the hands back down to our tabletop, giving the heels, the toes, the ankles a good wriggle out here. And then tap all those toes on the mat. We'll come back to our tabletop here. This time, left leg extends long behind. Seeing if we can keep the hips level here. So you might take a look behind you. Hips shouldn't be kind of lifted and open here. Both hips pointing towards the ground. Might mean your leg is not as high. Option to reach your right hand forwards and find balance. Focus could be on those right fingers or on the ground. Take another breath. Right hand comes back down. Left foot comes between the hands. Give it a shuffle to get there. Planting the foot firmly down here and then rising ourselves up. Hands might come onto the hips to start with here, and then taking a sway backwards and forwards here. So this could be a small sway, or you could really kind of lean deeply into that here. We'll take a couple. And then next time we start to come back, hips over the knee, straightening through the front leg. So you can take that heel away from you on this first one. Torso could stay lifted like me, or you could fold the torso forwards, hands support either side here. You can also find the shin. Perhaps though our focus is on drawing the toes towards us and opening through the back of the leg more than it is our fold forwards. We'll take that one more breath. And then wherever you are, bending through the left knee, planting the foot firmly, both hands find the sky. So length is upwards here. We'll take this into our twist. Right hand comes towards your left knee, taking the outside of your right hand onto the outside of your left knee. And then left hand circles back behind. You could stay here or you can release that hand long, your choice. Maybe you turn and take a look at your left fingers and give them a bit of a wriggle. Breath in. And then exhale to take the hands both all the way back down to the ground. So big circle if you like. Tucking the right toes under, pushing to your first downward facing dog. So when you're there, have a bit of a wriggle out. Maybe a roll through one knee and then the other. Maybe a shake of the head. And we'll take that onto the other side from here. So left foot steps forward, right knee. Untuck the right toe and draw ourselves up. Hands might find the hip and taking our sway to begin with. So that rock backwards and forwards. We don't have to be exact about this. If you want to take a circle instead, take a circle. And then drawing our hips backwards here. So they stacked over the right knee, left foot reaches forward. We've done this on the same side. We have, never mind, we'll do it again. And then holding here for a breath. Bending through that knee. Taking both hands up to the sky. We'll come back to our downward facing dog. Both hands find the ground. stepping that back. And then this time, let's step our right foot forward, dropping the left knee down, untucking left toe, hands find the hip. Wriggle of the hips backwards and forwards. There we go, that feels better. And then finding our half flip. So hips stacked over the left knee, right foot draws forwards, so the heel is down, but toes draw back towards you. Again, you could stay high or you could take that fold here, but focus is on drawing the toes towards the knees. And then planting your right foot down, bending the right knee, both hands find the sky. So we'll come to our twist on the other side. Outside of the left hand to outside of the right knee. And then right hand circles back behind. Maybe you're looking at your right fingers and you give them a wriggle. If you'd rather lift the hand here, lift it and reach wide. And then unraveling both hands back to the sky. Hands draw to the ground. We'll step to our downward facing dog. So tucking the left toes, right foot steps to the left. And again, taking that wriggle in your downward facing. Coming back to our hands whilst we're here as well. So feet might want to be either in line with the hips or slightly wider. Hands in line with the shoulders or slightly wider. Spreading the fingers wide and then that grip into the mat here. Maybe you bend the knees and turn the tailbone towards the sky. We'll walk our hands back towards the feet. So finding your forward fold at the back of the mat, letting everything hang out for a moment here. You could have the hands dangling down, or you could take hold of either elbow here, perhaps having a rock backwards and forwards here. So playing around with your balance in your fold. Maybe the toes lift and the heels lift as you rock. Take one more round of breath together. And then releasing hold of the elbows if you're holding on, rolling all the way up to standing. Uncurl of the body up as you rise, extending the hands towards the sky. Full body stretch here. And then releasing the hands alongside the body. We'll take 3 rounds of our standing suns here. So feet again could be either underneath the hips or toes close together. Building from our feet upwards. If you take a look down at the feet here, maybe again, you crunch the toes into the mat. So as if you're trying to grip the mat with your toes here. You might do that a couple of times. And then finding a kind of place between those two things. We're not gripping really hard here, but there is a little gentle grip. And that might help to kind of increase the arch of your foot. From there, standing up tall over the feet. So rather than kind of shoulders drop here, shoulders lift and then roll onto the back of the body. Maybe we take that one more time. So softening the shoulders, and kind of relax. Find the grip in your feet. And then inhale to lift the shoulders up as if we're taking a big roll, drawing them onto the back of the body. So shoulder blades are squeezed together here and then dropping the shoulders down. Palms face forward. Sometimes those palms facing forwards helps find that engagement through the back of the body. We'll take that to the sky, reaching the hands up, extended mountain, and then slowly to your fold. From your fold, hands find the shins or knees, halfway lift. And then folding back down, inhale to find the sky, hands draw all the way up. Let's take that twice more, forward fold, all the way down. Lifting halfway, hands to shins or knees, flat back position, folding back down. Maybe it's an inhale as we rise to the sky, extended mountain. Exhale to fold back down. Inhale to lift halfway. Exhale to fold. Inhale to find the sky. This time we'll take it all the way down to our downward facing dog. So extended mountain and then your fold. Inhale to lift halfway. This time as the hands draw down, bend the knees as much as you need to walk back to your downward facing dog. In your downward facing dog, we'll explore our vinyasa here. So rolling forwards to your plank, dropping the knees down. Those of you that want to take a vinyasa by taking cat-cow would take a cat-cow here. Otherwise, taking the hands slightly forwards, finding your supported plank, so knees are down, or knees are lifted. Either way, bending the elbows to take the body to the ground, untucking the toes and lifting just the chest up. The palms are pushing into the mat, cobra. Rolling back down as we tuck the toes and push to your downward facing dog. This time to the top of the mat, so looking forward, step, hop or walk, top of the mat, forward fold. Rising halfway, folding back down, and then inhale to find the sky. We'll take our sun A twice more. Forward fold. Lifting halfway, hands to shins or knees. Folding back down to plant the hands firmly, stepping to your plank, one foot and then the other. So is it your cat-cow you want to find here, or finding the ground? And then lifting to find your back bend, cobra, or up dog, your choice. Coming back down to the ground, tucking the toes, downward facing dog. Take a round of breath when we get. And then looking forward, hop, step or walk, top of the mat, forward fold. Lifting halfway, hands find shins or knees. Folding back down, hands find the sky. One more round. If you want to rest, take rest. Otherwise, one more sun A, forward fold. Lifting half. Hands come down and plant, bend the knees as much as you need, stepping one foot and then the other to your plank. Knees can drop or stay high, finding the ground. Lifting up the cobra, so pushing the ground away, flowing back down, toes tucked, downward facing dog. Pausing here. If you want to drop the knees, drop the knees. We'll take 3 rounds of breath. If you're staying in downward facing dog, perhaps on the inhale, lifting the toes up, lifting the heels up, so onto your tip toes. And then on the exhale, sinking the heels back down. So it's a small movement again in the feet. Inhale to rise onto the tip toes. Exhale to sink into the heels. You might take that one more time. And then focus this time is on our spring to the top of the mat. So let's take a look at the hands again here. You'll want to have them at least as wide as the shoulders. Looking forward, but bending the knees as much as you can here to drop the hips down towards the heels. So it feels like that lifted child pose. And then maybe you can use the legs and the bum to kind of spring yourself to the top of the mat. Doesn't matter if you want to take a step instead. Lifting halfway, folding back down, hands find the sky. This time hands find each other, and then the heart. Again, we'll take a couple of breaths here. Hands could stay at your heart or release them alongside the body. And again, we'll take a focus down on the feet. So taking a bit of a look down at the toes, lifting the toes up, and then placing them back down. And we'll do that twice more. Lifting the toes up. This time, see how it feels to place big toe down. And then the rest of your toes. And then again, lifting all of the toes up. Maybe you place your big toe down. Maybe you place your little toe down. Mine still does not do this. You might keep trying for another breath. And then place all of your toes down. Option to lift the heels, so rising onto the tip toes. And then planting the feet firmly. We'll come back to that bit of movement in the hip here, just before we come into our tree pose. So center of gravity comes into your left leg. Right knee is bent. And then lifting your right knee up here, taking hold of it with both hands, seeing if we can find a straight spine here. If it helps to find balance, focus on a point out in front of you and then flex your right foot. And then seeing if we can keep the knee where it is, but take the hands back to the hip. And then 2 circles with the knee. And then 2 circles in the opposite direction. Knee comes up in front. Without the hand, seeing if we can take the knee out to the side, but keep it lifted here, strengthening for the hips. And then let's find your tree pose. Foot plants to the inside of your left leg. We'll try and avoid the knee here, so you could find your calf, or you could take it higher to the inside of your thigh. You could also have toes on the ground. Hands come to heart. Pushing palms together here to start to activate through the upper body. So chest is slightly lifted as if it's trying to get towards the thumbs, and maybe your thumbs have landed on your chest. You could stay here, or let's open that up to the sky. Hands reach up. We'll take a breath wherever you are within this. If you want to challenge yourself, keep the hands lifted. If you don't, take them back to the heart. Either way, lifting the right knee, but keeping the hip to the side, and then drawing it forwards. Warrior 3, right foot draws back behind, torso draws down. Does not matter how high your back foot is lifted, but flexing the foot, so toes are pointing down here. Hands could be at heart. You could reach them out in front of you, or you could take them to your thigh. If you've got a handy wall like me, you could also use your wall. And then slow and steady, let's plant the right foot down here. Planting that foot so it's 45 degrees. The toes are pointing towards the top right corner of your mat, roughly, maybe a bit wider. Bending through your front knee. If it feels easier to have your heel lifted on the back, lift it up here. I'm going to place mine down. Hips are also slightly to the side here, so they're almost tracking the same line as your back toe. Maybe you have a wriggle into this, just like we did in our low lunge, but here in our warrior 1. And then we're going to see how it feels to lift the heel of that front foot. How does that activate through your calf muscle? Let's place it back down. We'll try the opposite. Maybe you lift the toes. What does that do to your back foot? We'll take that one more time. Lifting the heel of your front foot, placing it down, lifting the toes. And then both hands might find the sky, warrior 1. Palms are wide here, again, roughly in line with the shoulders. We'll take a little bit of flow. So from here, hands reach forwards and then sweep behind as the torso comes down. Inhale to find the sky. Exhale to draw behind. One more time. Inhale to find the sky. Exhale to draw behind. Inhale to find the sky. This time, hands come all the way down to the ground, framing your front foot, bend the knee, stepping to your downward facing dog. You could stay here, take 5 breaths, or your vinyasa, rolling forward to your plank, your way down to the ground, lifting up to find your back bend, and then meeting downward facing dog. We'll take it back to the top of our mat, looking forward, step up or walk, forward fold, top of the mat. Rising halfway. Fold back down, hands find the sky, find each other, and then the hip. We'll find our tree pose opposite side. So maybe we look back at the toes, lifting them, and then planting them down. Center of gravity this time comes into your right leg. So left heel lifts and then left knee lifts, taking hold of it with both hands, finding straightness upwards through the spine here. Maybe you find a point out in front of you to focus on, and then seeing if we can release the hands back to hips, but keep the knee where it is. 2 circles in one direction. Plant the toes if you want to, or challenge yourself to keep them lifted. And then those 2 circles opposite direction as well. There's that clunk. Knee is up in front, holding it there. And then seeing it without the hands, we can take the knee out to the side, keeping the foot lifted. So strengthening that hip flexor first, and then slowly placing the foot inside of your right leg, your tree pose on the other side. Hands come to the heart, pushing the palms together. Shoulder blades squeeze behind, lifting the chest. Maybe the chest lifts towards the thumbs. You could stay here or open that up to the sky, your tree pose. If you want challenge, close down the eyes. You could stay with the hands lifted, or you could draw them back to your heart again. Seeing if we can lift, left knee up. So just as we came in, left knee lifts up first and then draws back forwards, pivoting from the hips to draw torso forwards, left heel back behind warrior 3. Palms could stay at heart, or you could reach that forwards. Flexors there through the left leg, so toes are drawing towards the knee. Take another breath. And then slowly planting left foot down here. We'll take that focus again on the feet. Left toes are 45 degrees, so off to the top corner of your room. Front toes are forward, knee is bent. Hips are tracing the line of your back toes. They're slightly to the side here. If it feels easier to have your hips face forward, take that variation. You can always draw your toes in slightly here. And then that wriggle in and out with the hip. So bending deeply into the knee, maybe you straighten it out. And then bending through the knee, holding here. See how it feels. So lift the right heel and then place it down and lift the right toes. Can you keep that knee bent? We'll do it one more time. So lifting the heel, how does it change the arch of your left foot? And then placing the heel down. Can you lift the toes? Where is your center of gravity on that left foot when you do this? And then let's place them back down. Both hands find the sky, palms are wide. We'll take our flow this time as well. Drawing the hands forward, torso comes down, hands feet behind. Inhale to find the sky. Exhale to sweep behind. Inhale to find the sky. Front knee is still bent. One more time, sweeping the hands behind, torso comes down. Inhale to the sky. This time, hands come all the way down to the framing your front foot, stepping to your downward facing dog. So right foot reaches to the left. You could stay here, take 5 breaths. Otherwise, drawing forwards to your plank. Maybe it's a chaturanga, maybe it's knees. And then chest comes down together. Scoop of the chest up. And then wherever you are, meeting in your child's pose. So hips draw all the way back to the heels. Maybe the chest drops down. Maybe the forehead drops down. If you'd rather be in your downward facing dog, taking that variation instead, but we'll take roughly 5 breaths here. And it might be that you focus on the breath, or you come back to your intention or your focus for today's practice. Option to stay where you are and rest, or to come to the top of your mat one last time. So if you are coming back to the top of your mat here, starting to rise the torso back up, tucking the toes and then lifting the knees away, hips are high, downward facing dog. Finding the top of your mat. So maybe it's a big step, a hop, or a walk. And then rising halfway, pausing here. folding back down. And then big reach up towards the sky, extended mountains, so big stretches up here. Option to take a gentle back bend. Palms might come together overhead, and then maybe the hips lean forwards and the palms reach slightly backwards. So the tips of your fingers are drawing towards the back of your mat. Elbows might open quite wide. And then palms come back to the heart, hips in line with the feet. Our last standing posture of our practice today. If you're feeling like you want a bit extra movement, keep moving. Otherwise, hands come back alongside the body here and we'll curl down like we did on our first kind of draw up. So starting by finding a tuck of the chin here and then rolling ourselves forwards, shoulders roll forwards as well. And then all the way down to our forward fold. Bend the knees generously here. Your hands come towards your feet. And it might be that you stay here, hands on the feet or near the feet. Option to find a variation where you bend the knees as much as you need here, lift your left toes, and then place your left hand underneath and then your foot back down. It might not be something that you enjoy. If you want to experiment with it, take one hand under one foot, maybe the opposite hand under the other foot. You can also do this by just tucking the hands underneath your toes. Maybe it's your whole palm of your hand, the sole of your foot. And again, that bend through the knees here will help. Seeing if we can relax through the back of the neck, so give the head a bit of a shake. You'll feel perhaps again that compression through the front of the body where the thighs are meeting the torso. And then releasing one hand and then the other, placing the feet firmly back down here. We'll heel toe the feet roughly as wide as your hips. Toes turn outwards though, heels are in, and then dropping the hips down into your Malasana. So you could stay hands on the ground or take palms together, elbows on the insides of your knees. When we take those elbows on the inside of the knees, maybe there's that little bit of kind of widening or opening through the hip. We'll take this all the way down into our seat and our forward fold. If you want to challenge yourself, take the hands forwards here and balance down. If you don't, the hand towards the ground. Either way, we'll start to drop the hips down here. There might be a little bit of a bump as we drop down, and then taking the feet forwards. We'll come back to our butterfly where we started. So soles of the feet come towards each other, knees are out to the side here. If this is your least favorite pose, take a different forward fold. If you are joining in butterfly here, hands find the front of your shins. And then seeing if we can find length up through the torso here. So we're sitting tall through this spine. Maybe there's a deep breath. And then hands also extend upwards towards the sky. Starting to tilt forwards from the pelvis. And then the chest draws forward. Seeing if you can find that edge again. So where is the edge where you can't fold forwards anymore? Once you've found it, drawing the hands down towards your feet. Maybe you peel your feet open like you're reading the soles of your feet like a book. And we'll take a couple of breaths here. You could be still or you could take a sway, doesn't really matter. Just see how that feels through your hip, maybe through your lower back. And then slowly coming back up. If you want to stay longer in the fold, stay longer. If you do have a block nearby you, you might pop that beside your hips here. So we've got access to it. We're going to come back down onto our mats. You could also have a block, a book even. I did say block originally. If you've got a blanket that you want for the end of practice, have that near you as well. And then let's use our hands to scoop the knees back together here. Feet plant roughly as wide as your hip. Same with your knees. We'll take boat pose to come down onto the mat here. Again, ignore me if you don't want to take it. You could roll down from here. If you are joining, make sure you've got enough space behind you to come fully down onto your back. Just like we did in our fold, chest is lifted here. And then one shin might join, opposite shin might join. Seeing if we can keep collarbone and chest lifted. Whole core is engaged, not just the abdominals, the sides, your lower back, your shoulders, everything in the torso. Option to float the hands if you're playing around with straightening through one or both legs here, take that variation. Stay holding the knees. Keeping the breath going. And then slow and steady as you like, all the way down to the ground. Eventually landing on your mat and then giving yourself a moment to really kind of arrive here. Maybe you take a wriggle through the feet, a wriggle through the hips. Option to pause here or to draw knees into chest and give yourself that hug and a squeeze. Maybe you take a few rolls through the ankles here. I'm going to find my favorite kind of pose for the feet. So our legs or feet in the air, I guess. You can do this without the block here, but I really enjoy that little bit of elevation. So planting the feet back down, if you've got your block here, lifting the hips and then sliding it underneath your hips. It wants to be kind of central between the two hips and then at the base of your lower spine. And once you've found that, hands could either rest on the front of your hips or be down on the ground and then taking legs towards the sky. So you can do this without having something under the hip. You can even do it with having something higher under the hip, so a bolster, a couple of blocks. Maybe you take a good look at the feet and kind of wriggle them around a bit. If anyone prefers exploring a shoulder stand here, you're very welcome to take that variation where you grab the hips and take the legs towards the sky. But we'll hang out here for roughly another 30 seconds or so. If it feels like you want to take the legs down, obviously, do take the legs back down. This is my favorite thing to do at the end of a really long day, especially if I've been on my feet a lot. I can probably attest to seeing me just lying on the ground with my feet in the sky. And from here, you might start to draw the feet back down, keeping the block where it is if you do have one here. Taking the arms overhead, finding a stretch with the arms any way that you want here. So it might be that you interlace the fingers and push them away, or maybe you just reach the hands away here. And then drawing your hands back alongside the body, releasing that block from underneath the hips, planting the back onto your mat. Let's see how it feels now that your back is in contact with the ground again. If you want to take a sway, take a sway. We'll set ourselves up for our final resting pose of our practice here. So I'd really encourage you to kind of take what you need from this. It might be that you want to stretch the legs out long. and take them long. If there's some movement that you want to take before you come into your final resting pose, you could take that here. Might be a wriggle, a stretch, a twist. You could also find your final resting pose by taking the feet as wide as the mat, knees to the sky, and then knocking the knees together here in constructive rest. If you've got props, bolsters, blankets, add them in here. Blankets could be over the top, or they could be underneath your head. And in fact, wherever you are, perhaps tucking the chin towards your chest slightly here. So we're finding that bit of length through the back of the neck as well. Focus might come back towards the feet, wherever you are. Tuning into how they feel. Are they warm or cold? Do they feel like they've been active or asleep? And you're very, very welcome to stay focused on the feet, or perhaps taking your focus towards the breath. Noticing how the breath feels here. That rise and fall of the body with each breath. Perhaps on each exhale here, softening the shoulders down towards the ground. Softening through the face. Softening through the jaw. Noticing if you're holding your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Maybe even softening through the hips, the ankles or feet. Maybe even the palms of your hands and your fingertips. We'll take another 2 or so minutes here. And your awareness might stay with the breath. Maybe it stays with the sounds that you can hear in your space. If you would like to stay exactly where you are for the end of your practice, and you could stay low or stay lying down here. It might be that you even kind of snuggle off into bed shortly or into the rest of your evening. If you would like to join me seated in a moment to close practice, you might start to explore some gentle wriggles through your fingers and toes again. So bringing movement back into the body. Maybe you draw knees into chest or take a big stretch. And if you do want to come through to seated, then taking a roll to one side and then drawing all the way up to a seat. Hands might land on knees or in your lap, perhaps finding that sense of fullness through your seat here. So growing full through the spine. And again, we might draw back to intention one last time together here. Perhaps it's something that you want to leave just with your yoga practice and you close your intention down here. You could even take a breath and kind of release it. Or if it's something that you want to reaffirm and take with you into your evening, then maybe you take a couple of rounds of breath and kind of repeat it to yourself in your head. And if you want to join those 3 deeper breaths just before we close here, then that bigger inhale to fill the lungs with air. And then exhale or sigh. Inhale and exhale. And then one more time in your own way. Palms might come together at the heart in Anjali Mudra. So sealing palms together in our practice. Maybe you take a bow here to honor yourself and to honor those that have shared this space with you this evening. And we will close our practice there for today. I'm just going to pause our recording.